Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be bringing you a recommendations video for LGBTQ plus authors and books, but specifically those that come from Ireland. As you may know, the Irish Readathon is approaching, which is a month where myself and my two co-hosts, Elaine and Aoife, encourage the book community to read more Irish literature than they normally would. So even if you're reading one book that you could consider an Irish book in the month of March, then you're participating in this readathon. Leave all the information that you need down below in the description, including links to our announcement videos. Every year we set a number of optional challenges for those participating in the readathon, and one of our challenges this year was to read a book that could be considered LGBTQ plus or queer, that can be in the characters or the author themselves. You know, someone's sexuality or where there are LGBTQ plus themes isn't always immediately obvious, so I am here today to give you a number of recommendations, but this list is by no means exhaustive. There are a bunch of other books out there and other writers out there that you can seek out. One of the most well-known Irish queer writers is Oscar Wilde. He is most well known for his novel The Picture of Dorian Gray, but he's also written a number of plays including Lady Windermere's Fan and The Importance of Being Earnest. I also really recommend checking out his short stories for children. They're a lot of fun, and I think if you want to find out a bit more about him as a person and take a look at his sexuality in a bit more detail and in his own words, I would really recommend reading his prison letters. I think there's a lot of really interesting insight into his personal life in those. Oscar Wilde was married and he did father children with his wife, but he definitely had relationships with men, and I guess you could probably consider him bisexual, but I don't know if he ever directly labelled himself that. Another recommendation I want to give from classic literature is Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu's novel Carmilla. This is a vampire novel that predates Dracula. In this book from 1871, we follow Carmilla as she bonds with a young girl named Laura, who doesn't quite realise that her very beautiful new gal pal is actually a 200-year-old vampire. I read this one a couple of years ago for Victober and I thought it was so fantastic. It totally took me by surprise how much I enjoyed it, and I cannot recommend it to you enough if you want some sexy lesbian vampire goodness. Another author I would like to recommend to you is Kate O'Brien. Her 1941 novel The Land of Spices was banned on publication because there was just like one tiny little gay bit in it. Her 1951 novel As Music and Splendor continued on with having some LGBTQ plus themes and follows two girls who travel to Rome to study operatic singing in the 1880s, and one of these girls begins a love affair with a Spanish singer. In Ireland, we have a tendency to ban really good literature, like historically anyway. But moving into some more contemporary stuff now, an author I would really highly recommend is Emma Donoghue. I don't know exactly how Emma Donoghue identifies herself, but I know she is somewhere on the queer spectrum. She is probably most well known for her novel Room, but she also has a number of fantastic books including The Wonder, Frog Music, and her latest novel Akin. She has some fiction for younger readers. Here I have The Lotteries More or Less. This is like a middle grade novel and it's one part of a duology, and these books are packed full of diversity, inclusivity in terms of race, gender, and sexuality. This diversity is included in a really positive and seamless way. Nothing is ever made a big deal of, which is fantastic. One of her novels that I haven't read is called Stir Fry, and I think this is where she deals with sexuality in the most direct way. But she is such a prolific author and she is both queer and Irish. John Boyne is a gay Irish writer and he is probably most well known for The Boy in the Striped Pyjamas and The Heart's Invisible Furies. What I will say with this author is that there is a lot of controversy around his opinions and outlooks on other things, particularly how he has depicted trans people in one of his most recent novels. So be aware if that's someone you want to read because of LGBTQ plus representation. Like, I've heard fantastic things about The Heart's Invisible Furies, but all of the letters in LGBTQ plus are important. Colin Tobin is another author that you could read for the LGBTQ plus prompt in this readathon. He's probably most well known for Brooklyn and The Testament of Mary, but he is such a prolific writer and has written so many like fantastic works of fiction and non-fiction and poetry. One author who is probably better known for his work as a chat show host is Graham Norton. I have two of his novels here, Holding and A Keeper. I've not read either of these yet, but I'm definitely going to be reading this one for the Irish Readathon this year. Moving on to a bit of YA now, I want to give a massive recommendation for the author Meg Grehan. I read her book The Space Between a couple of years ago for the Irish Readathon, and I thought it was phenomenal. It is a love story between two young girls that is told in verse, so it's a really quick read, but it is full of so much warmth. Her latest novel, The Deepest Breath, has been shortlisted for the Waterstones Children's Book Prize, and likewise deals with themes of sexuality. Meg is just fantastic. She's also like the nicest person ever, so I really just cannot recommend her writing enough. Another YA book that I want to shout out is Perfectly Preventable Deaths by Deirdre Sullivan. I'm not sure if Deirdre herself identifies as part of the LGBTQ plus spectrum, but there is representation in this book, and I think that representation was done very, very well. It's not made a big deal out of, and that's, I think, really what I want as a queer person reading about queer characters now. I just want their sexuality to just be there, and it doesn't need to be made a big deal out of. It's also super feminist. It follows the story of two twin sisters who move to a new small town in Ireland, and some witchy goings on start to happen. This was one of my favourite books that I read in 2019. I thought it was fan-fucking-tastic. So they are some of my recommendations for LGBTQ plus authors that hail from Ireland. As I said, this list is by no means exhaustive. There are lots of other queer writers out there that are definitely worth checking out, and I would encourage you to do a bit of your own research if this is something that interests you. But if you have any other recommendations that I haven't included here, do leave them down in a comment, because I'd love to have a chat about this, and I think it would also help other people to get recommendations from one another. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will talk to you in my next video.